Okay, it is 5 o'clock. Will you please rise and join me for the pledge of the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll first have our open forum. Is there anyone that would like to come forward and address the board at this time? Okay, we'll move on to celebrating our successes, and we have the Albert Lea Freeborn County Chamber of Commerce, John Double and Tom Knowles here with him. Thank you for all your support, and we certainly look forward to participating with you in the future. So, thank you.
We appreciate all that you do also. Thank you. One of the things I get to do in the education portion of the program is we have a mock school board meeting that they get to sit through and look at budget cuts. So we make it a little real for the participants. So, but it's been a great experience, and it gives people flavor on what the board is dealing with on a regular basis.
Okay, we're moving on to approval of today's agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to the consent items. Is there what are the board wishes there? Move to approve. Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the consent item signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to reports, Dr. Funk.
A couple different things tonight. We have a learning team that meets in the school district, and that learning team is made up of teachers and administrators. And by statute, it's also the district-wide staff development committee, so there's more teachers and administrators on the team. And so we met last week, and we talk a lot about teaching and learning. And so what we go ahead and move that, Ashley. What we came up with last week are some non-negotiables from the teaching and learning team on what we think is important for the professionals and the students in our district. And we think we want high quality standards-based curriculum. We want highly effective instruction. We want our learning to be responsive to the needs of our students. So if somebody is not able to figure something out, we readjust to meet the needs of the student. And then the last one there is we want effective quality supports to maximize individual potential. And that's student and staff directed. So We want to make sure we've got a great mentorship program for new teachers coming in. We have a continuous improvement with our staff development program. And again, working with our students, we want to focus on maximizing their potential. So this is what we kind of are about, or what we are about as a teaching and learning team in the district. And we're going to be having more discussions on this at the building level. But I thought I'd share this with the board. I also attended a seminar on TRA and the future of the Minnesota Teachers Retirement Association and some concerns that we have for the longevity of that program. It's important to our district because they are seeing a shortfall in TRA funding out into the future, and they have some different solutions that impact current district funding, potentially impacting the district funding and what teachers receive in salary, and then also long-term, the impact on what happens with teachers after they retire. So, interestingly enough, when they started to take a look at a study with TRA over the past 20-some years here, you can see back in 1990, when somebody retired, if you were a female from the time of retirement, the average person lived about 19.6 years. A male was 14.3. As you can see, as we move forward, they're expecting people to live longer and longer. And so this impacts the TRA pension fund, because instead of making payments for 15 or 20 years, we are now going to be making payments for 22 to 25 years, and so they're afraid that they're going to run out of money. So they're projecting, as you can see out into the future here, different rates of return on their investments. So if they kept an investment with an 8% rate of return for all the money that's invested by the people who run the TRA fund, they say that by 2046, the fund will only be about 71% funded. Now, if they adjust that investment down to say we're only going to make 7.5% a year on average, then by 2046, the fund will only be 50% funded. And so the long-term stability of the fund is at stake here as far as what to do. So in 2017, TRA came forward with a plan to try and stabilize the fund and fix it. And the plan was vetoed in the pension bill by the governor, so there's been no fix yet. But even having said that, you can see that PERA, the teachers, and I'm not sure what MSRS is, if it might be the Minneapolis, I'm not sure, all receive money for their pension bill to help with the fund challenge. TRA received $0. So moving forward into 2018, the TRA board is seeking input from stakeholders throughout the state. They've been having board meetings. I think they had one last week. And here's what they're thinking of doing down at the bottom. They're thinking of adjusting the rate of return down to 7.5%. Last year, there was a potential freeze on the cost of living adjustment, moving it to 1%. So it would be a 1% freeze in perpetuity moving forward for people who are retired on the fund. They were looking at a contribution increase from employers with no new money from the state, and employees, which again would impact their take-home pay. And they're now seeking, are we going to get any state aid? If we ask school districts to increase their contribution from, what is it, 7.5%, I think it is right now, to 9%, okay, is the district going to have to take that out of their general funds, or where's that going to come from? Are we going to give state aid to do that? So this has some potential funding implications for everybody involved, teachers and the school board here. And so I thought I would bring it to your attention, at least this evening, because this will be one of the key things they try to fix in the 2018 session. Questions on any of that?
Did they talk about the impact of now the rule of 90 kind of going away in a sense? I don't want to mean it's not going away, but the number of teachers that would be retiring versus the number of years paid? Because now all of a sudden, if we're getting 64 or 5-year-old teachers retiring instead of 57 or 8, there's got to be a gap in
Yeah,
there maybe.
they didn't talk about it, but one of the things they talked about was moving the retirement age to 66. So for the full retirement. Other questions on that? Okay, that concludes my report.
Okay, school board members, reports. Neil, you want to start for us, please?
Well, much of my report will be talked about by Kathy Niebuhr, who's going to present some things in connection with our curriculum committee. And the items that we discussed there. The one thing that really stood out at our last meeting was the presentation of a new program, a new course that's going to be offered next year at the high school, excuse me, in human geography, which is really, it's an AP course, and will be available for sophomores through seniors. And geography, I know most people, when they think of geography, they think of maps and rivers and location of countries and capital cities. But human geography is really a good name because geography, there's a misconception about what it is. Geography has evolved into something much more than that. And this course will do a wonderful job of presenting migrations of cultures or of ethnic groups and the agriculture or the commerce that's associated with particular areas, and it includes an awful lot more than what the capital of Namibia is.
I attended the Family Services Collaborative meeting, and we have a new leader. Her name is Jessica Bernand. We talked about meeting times and lengths for the coming year, and there'll be some strategic planning being done for that. Thank you.
A couple things. I had the Business Education Committee meeting here a week or so ago, and we're continuing to talk about different things, different collaborations within our city, working with education, trying to even talked a lot about Jean Eaton's program that she's got going and continues through our schools, which has been great. Also got elected as a 2-year term to the Minnesota State, the MSBA Insurance Trust Board. And so that'll be interesting to do. And then had a lot of fun going to our play. I saw Neil there. It was a great time.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a few comments. About a year ago, we got together to talk about our Director of Finances, and I just want to give everybody an update for the past year. So as treasurer this past year, I worked with Lori quite closely and have been very impressed by her skills and what she's brought. And I want to give an example of a problem that we don't have, that a district not too far from here has. And I want to be clear, I'm not relishing in anyone else's problem. So I want to be clear to that, but I have to tell you what their problem is so that you can see that we don't have one. So as you all know, we have a health and safety budget that we use to do health and safety construction projects in the district. That money is spent, but then it's required to be added to the levy to be brought back to the district. And that is a complicated process that another district has had trouble following. And then when there's a deficit, and in this district it was $1.5 million, it's a district that's about 90 miles from here. That comes out of the general fund. So their general fund is now 6.7% instead of the 14 that we have. They just had a referendum that got defeated by 94% of the voters because they don't have any confidence in the finances of the district. And my point is that none of this happens magically. It happens because Lori, under Mike's direction, Lori has the knowledge and the skill sets to get this stuff right, and she has the passion to make sure it's perfect. And I just thought that I should bring this up a year later because I think people should know that when they came to support Lori, that they're getting their money's worth. Yes, sir. So that's the end of my.
So this is an interesting, this is the Big Nine referendum frequency since 2009 when Lori and I came to the district. These are the number of referendum questions sought by districts in the Big Nine since 2009. And you can see we're number one there at the bottom. We've had one question, and that was a renewal that we went out for in 2013. So when we're talking about confidence in the finances of the school district, I think that's pretty incredible when districts all around us are going out for multiple questions, and we've had one since 2009. So thanks, Mark.
Yeah, I attended the Veterans Day program at Halverson School, and it was great. It was great. They always do. I don't know if anyone's been able to attend any of the concerts at the elementary schools. They do a wonderful job. It's always, it may have a little seriousness being a veterans program, but they have some jokes in there and a little skits and stuff too. So that was a lot of fun. And then on Saturday, I did the Gobble Wobble for the first time that ALEA puts on, and I'm happy to report that I think I got second to last place. I went with a friend and we just walked it. But it was great because there's all these people on the route that, tell you, okay, you go this way next and all of that. And while we were walking, they're like, oh, good job, good job. I'm like, yay, we're doing great. So that was fun.
Did the route get changed?
No.
What happened?
There was a mistake in the route. I was not here for the race, but that is part of my report also, but not the mistake. But the mistake was one of the volunteers didn't realize they were supposed to turn one way and sent them the other way. So people had really good times because it was like a half a mile short.
I was waiting for them to come by my house and they never came, and so
So there was an error, so if someone thinks they ran really fast, they really didn't.
So then I walked even slower than I initially thought.
Yes.
Okay, I also was at Halverson School for the Veterans Day celebration along with Neil and Angie. And like you said, it was very nice. Really not a part of this school board, but the Education Foundation, I continue to attend those, and I guess I feel really good about where that's headed and the things that are going on there, and I look forward to our report tonight, because I know that Gene Eaton went with a lot of the staff up to Alexandria, so I'm looking forward to that report. And then I also met with Mike. We went through referendums and some other things, and looking back, I know Joe remembers all the referendums we used to have, which it's nice not to have them, but we know that funding is definitely important. So we'll move on then to our students. Gigi or Ella, do you have something to report tonight?
Yes, with the end of the fall musical a couple weeks ago, all the winter sports are getting into full swing, so that's been fun. And then the speech team is starting up this week. We started that this year, so it should be fun. That's about it.
Okay, thank you very much. And then our teacher report, Dawn Ware.
Okay. I wanted to come tonight to report on the Gobble Wobble. It was our second annual, and we held it on Saturday. Again, not the best weather, but we kind of expect that at that time of the year. But we started holding the race to fundraise and to provide funds for our ALEA scholarships that we give out. We award those to 2 seniors who are going into the field of education. And way back when, we used to fund that with a magazine drive. But magazines are kind of not everything. A lot of things are online, so that fund dwindled that fundraising dwindled, so we were trying to come up with another way to raise some money, and this seemed like a good idea. Fits in with our blue zones and all of that healthy community. And this year we had just over 70 participants, and we have our prizes or our awards are always turkey related or Thanksgiving related, so winners got a Thanksgiving dinner and lots of door prizes. We have lots of businesses that donate, and it's fun for us to go out and talk to businesses and visit with them as we go, chat with them and get prizes and stuff. So I wasn't here for it. I was at the Badger game, so just got to get that in there. But everyone said it was a success. So we plan to hold it next year also. And that's all. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Moving on to curriculum and instruction, we have Kathy Niebor talking about the Alexandria site visit and then World's Best Workforce. Kathy?
Yeah, thank you. So as part of a grant through our Riverland Perkins Consortium, one of the pieces of the grant is you have to visit unique and different schools or other organizations. So as I've said before, Dr. Funk last year went at a conference, heard the folks from Alexandria speak, and all last year, are you going to go, are you going to go, you got to go. And we scheduled it 3 times and the snow snowed us out. So we were fortunate this year through this funding to send a number of people from our consortium. So myself, Jeff Jensen, who's an industrial arts teacher at the high school, Mark Grossklaus, and Dr. Funk met us there from Riverland, Jean Kyle, Heather Earl, and Nell Zeller, who is in charge of admissions, Owatonna Marv Jaden, who is their industrial tech teacher, and then Austin's assistant principal, Matt Schmitz, and another industrial tech teacher, Ryan Learn. So as a group, we attended, went up the night before. It's a long drive. It was a 9 to 2. So you start at 9. They offer these once a month. And if you stay for the long version, it's $75 per person, but it includes lunch. And then, the student handbook, which I don't know if it's worth $75. But the trip itself, the tour itself, was well worth the event, traveling there. So the big takeaways is Alexandria was poised to build a new high school 4 years ago. And so as a result, they met with, they had a failed referendum in the mid-2000s trying to build a new high school. And so they brought someone in to work with their community and their schools to really talk about a process for what's the best way to go about trying to convince the community that building a new high school was the right thing to do. And what should that high school look like? So through this presenter and facilitator, they met with other schools. They went to Nashville. They went to California. They went to Iowa. And so they took all that back, and then as a community, they developed drivers, and those drivers drove their project. So their drivers were flexibility, technology, collaboration, small learning communities, community partnerships, and relationships. And from that, then they went to the community, and there's some videos, which we're not going to watch tonight, but that they have out on their website that really kind of walk through that whole process. Once the referendum passed, they then took their drivers and they developed this new high school. And it's a beautiful facility, but we went up there not with the intention really of listening to how to build a new facility, but how are your community relationships working? How are your business partnerships working? And in particular, how are these pathways working? Our presentation for the day was led by their high school principal and by their academy coach. So they have a full-time teacher on special assignment, and she is really the right-hand person of the principal, leading the community partnerships, training teachers, leading the academies, providing professional development, working with instructional coaches. They have 6 instructional coaches between their middle school and their high school, 1 for each core area. And then as they move forward, they know they wanted these pathways, and they called them academies, and I'll show you the graphic on the next slide. They then really reached out. They had tremendous community support. Their auditorium is named after Tastefully Simple. They sponsored that auditorium. The Commons is sponsored by Arcan. Their amazing weight and fitness room is sponsored by Geneva Capital. So they raised over $1 million to do some special projects, similar to what we did for the grand piano and other things at the high school. They really went out and solicited staff support from the community. They really wanted not only the facilities, but the community also supported some increased staffing. And now the community is supporting a very well thought out and well tiered experiential learning opportunity. They really want to look at getting students off campus in unique ways. They really didn't do that the first 2 years. They kind of got their campus life going, their pathways going the first 2 years. And now the last 2 years, they've been working on getting students off campus into the community and really building relationships. So this is the 4 academies. All of the freshmen are in the Freshman Academy. Nobody gets to decide which areas they want to be in until they go through this Freshman Academy. They are a 4-period day, every other day schedule. They have an academy showcase. They talk about career awareness. They have a huge career expo. They have mentors come in and work with the students once a month. And really this academy lead is the person who organizes all of that. Once the students become a sophomore, they must choose one of these 3 academies. And so health science and human services. I'm going to have to get this other one out here. The engineering, manufacturing, technologies, and natural resources, and then business communication and entrepreneurship. So they've really taken the career wheel, which is 7 areas, and they've whittled it down to these 3. And then in the center, they have foundation knowledge and skills, and then their core coursework. They do a lot of, they're starting to do applied core courses, so physics. A student can take physics by themselves, or they can take physics along with the Project Lead the Way course and earn the physics credit. They have a group in the sophomore year for geometry that earn the credit through a construction design course. In chemistry, they can earn through food science, which, by the way, Owatonna does as well. So they're really trying to develop some applied core coursework. And then they have specialized electives within the academies. As freshmen, the students stay on campus, and they have a mentor for small groups. And then sophomore year, they spend a 1 day out in the community in a field experience, and that's based on which of the academies they've chosen. By their junior year, they are out doing some job shadowing, and it's part of a course. And then their senior year, they're starting a program called CAPS Projects and Career Internships. And this is their first year doing that. This year's senior class is the first class that have gone through this model. We had a tour guide who actually was in the health sciences and human services, but he's interested in studying theater. So we asked why you weren't maybe in one of the other areas which had a theater, if you look under hospitality tourism, had some theater courses. And he said he really wanted to study theater, but the health science area really allowed him to have a skill to fall back on should he not maybe be so successful his first year out in New York. So he was kind of interesting to speak with. The facility was pretty amazing, a lot of free and open spaces. Their commons area is very well used throughout the day. Their media center is really a student study center now, and the books are throughout the building. They have bookshelves throughout the building. The kids are one-to-one Chromebooks, and they check the books out to themselves and then return them to the media center, and they shelve them. lots of study areas, lots of glass that isn't covered up. Oftentimes you can walk through schools and people cover up their glass, and it really is the expectation that this building is open and that their teacher planning centers are open so that students can go to their office hours. So it's really been 4 years of developing this model, doing a lot, slowing down, doing a lot, slowing down, but lots and lots and lots of community partnerships.
So what's the take-home message that we, that at least talk to you? What do we need to change in our system to do a better job?
Sure, I think one of the things that Jeff Jensen, just talking from the teacher point of view, he said, you know, we really, we offer some traditional coursework that is traditional coursework, it's foundational, but thinking outside the box. He was very interested in that team teaching that geometry course, and he said, asked the principal, what does that look like, you know, class-wise to co-teach a course, and he said, higher class sizes, that would be part of it. The other piece is having that double block of a class to be able to do some long-term projects. So that was one of the things he brought back that we kind of talked about at lunch, that maybe something we could take a look at. I also attended a session at a different conference with Project Lead the Way in Physics, and Anoka Hennepin is starting to offer that opportunity. We know that students have to take chemistry or physics. We don't require one or the other. The state says either or. Chemistry is kind of a tough course for some of our students. Maybe a food science course, maybe physics with Project Lead the Way to free up some time for those students. So one of the things Jeff wanted to do is really kind of sit down and go through this registration guide and, you know, how did they make this happen? How did these courses look different from what we offer? He's interested in we talked about engaging students. Are these courses more engaging than what we're offering? So that's kind of where we're starting.
Go back a slide, Kathy. So I think for the board, if you look at the white bullet there, the third line, okay, so the board and really the school board, having discussions with community members, really came up with the flexibility. We're going to have technology. We want to collaborate. We want small learning communities, improving community partnerships, and they wanted to do this academy model. Okay, so they really took a look at what do we want, what does our community need, and what do we want for our high school students. And I think if we sat down and had some good, robust discussions with members from the chamber, and you know, we have the business education committee, the group you're working with, Ken, really what do we want to, what's important to our community for an Albert Lea High School grad, and how do we get there? I think we would come up with some drivers such as Alexandria came up, and then we can take a look at, okay, well, what does that mean for us as far as curriculum, and how can we align things from a curricular angle? So I think it's a good opportunity for us as a school board to take a couple steps back and say, okay, what do we want community members, and have a dialogue with the community on what's important to our community and to our parents and what they want to see out of high school graduates. So that's my takeaway from that.
One of the comments we asked was, you know, if we look in the comments here, this community looks somewhat different than ours. What is your English learner rate? And he said, to be honest, we had 1 EL student last year, and I think we have 4 this year. We have a 24% free and reduced lunch rate. So we look very different. But he said, having said that, when you travel to Nashville, that community looks very different than ours. And if they can do something different and more engaging and offer more opportunities for their students, we certainly felt we could do that here. So, and that often comes up when we visit other schools is, yeah, but they don't look like us. And he said, we do look different, but many of the schools we visited, in particular Nashville, does not look like northern Minnesota, but are doing this. And this is what Shakopee is basing. Their new model will be based on what's happening in Nashville, Burnsville, also doing something like this. Hutchinson is doing theirs a little differently. They're doing a trimester option, whereas they wanted to stay with the semester option. They do have a 4-period day and every other day schedule. So it was interesting, lots of interesting things that we got to see.
Questions or comments?
In what ways do you see the free and reduced numbers and EL numbers affecting how a student might respond in this type of situation? Do they need more self-motivating time, or what are you thinking there?
I think as we, you know, when you'll look at our World's Best Workforce data and that achievement gap and where we are and aren't closing that achievement gap, why is that? And I think one of those pieces is to engage students to see that there is something for them coming out of this high school education. And for 30 years, we've been pushing that college degree, and so what else is out there? And that's what this community said is, we need these students to stay in our community. We need them for our community to grow, and to do that, we need to show them there's these 3 distinct pathways that we need employees in our community, and we need our students, all of our students. They have an area learning center of students who are at risk. They have some other issues as well, but overall, it was about engaging students no matter what. And I think that when we look at these our achievement gap numbers, why is that? Are we engaging those students?
Yeah, I think, you know, we're not Alexandria, we're not Nashville, we're Albert Lea. And the first thing we need to discover is who we are and what our needs are, and then model our educational program to fit those needs rather than have an educational program and then force students into it, which is what I think most educational institutions have been doing, including us to a certain extent. I'm really excited about this. If we could just determine that, you know, who we are, what are our needs, and then figure out some vehicle that could make available to our students some education that will accommodate their needs, we'd have an easy thing to sell.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Looks like we have a little work to do. So we'll need to put together a plan for that. Next, Kathy, World's Best Workforce.
So this is the report based on last year's achievement. World's Best Workforce, for those who've been around for a while, is the new Student Accountability Report. It was passed by the legislature in 2013. These are the top 5 are the legislative goals. So all school districts must determine all children are ready for school, 3rd graders can read at grade level, all racial and economic achievement gaps between students are closed, all students are ready for career and college, and all students graduate from high school. And then we have our local pathways to success. So we report against those goals and we report against our own goals, some which cross and some don't. So how is progress measured? Since 2013, the legislature has charged the Department of Ed for determining that, and the Department of Ed has come up with a number of ways, closing the gap by student group, and they use some metrics and some MCA scores, high school graduation rates, and career and college readiness, and MDE really struggles with how to measure career and college readiness. So we then have established these goals in our pathways to success. If you look way over under 912, above, towards the bottom, under those arrows, you'll see a white block, student pathways based on interest and ability. And that white block is there because one of the things that has changed is that EPOS system, the longitudinal system, is gone, so the Explore and Plan is now taken out of there, and we replace that with our planning system, which is Naviance, which is part of our reporting. So, one of the goals you have set is that all schools, or all students are, that 70% of children will demonstrate proficiency and be ready for kindergarten. We have moved on to a different test this last year. Started a year ago. This is year 2, and that's the FAST test. So we're at 57% of kindergartners according to the FAST test. Prior to that, we were using AimsWeb. So we're now really 1 full year into FAST testing from when we last reported. And we have not met that goal. That goal is 70%, 57% of kindergartners hit that goal. The next goal you have set is that 80% of children will be on target for 3rd grade reading proficiency. So, got an error there, it should be May of 2017. So for the 16-17 school year, in the aggregate, 48.7% of our 3rd graders were proficient, with Lakeview at 64.3%. Still not hitting that 80%, so again, goal not met. And this is MDE's rubric, or their template, so this format is how we have to report this. In addition, the state has determined that we need to reduce the achievement gap in all 5 of our subgroups by 50% by 2017. Well, this is 2017. So where we have hit that is Lakeview. Close the achievement gap in math for all subgroups. And then in reading, they closed it for 3 out of the 5 subgroups. So they're the only school that hit the goal in one area. Because we didn't hit it in all schools, we have to determine that that goal was not met. Hawthorne closed the gap in 1 subgroup, and that's LEP students in math and reading, Sibley in reading, and Southwest Middle School. So, how do they determine that? Well, if you look there, grade 3, 2013, the legislature said this is the baseline data, and you notice that they've added 2 groups this last year because the feds are going to add 2, disaggregate this in 2 different ways. So they took our baseline data and they decided, the legislation said in red there by 2017, that's the number you have to hit. So that's the percentage of students that should be in each of those categories for us to close the achievement gap by 50%. So you'll see that across the district, in grade 3, in those subgroups, we did not hit any of those 70%, 65%, or 58% numbers. Because we're in a year of transition, the 17 goal is the 18 goal. ESSA will be coming into play a year from now. Should the federal government approve Minnesota's plan, they have 120 days to approve it. And they submitted it September 17th. So that goal that you see for 2017 is the same goal we have for 2018. You have a goal, a local goal, that 90% of Albert Lea area school students will achieve their growth targets. And so some of this is data I sent to you a couple weeks ago. The Minnesota growth in reading is up 57% in grades 4 through 8 from 56.2%, and Minnesota math is down 55.5 from 56.4. So where are we? You can see the growth results, the percentage of students hitting their target. Overall, in reading, grades 4 through 8, we are up to 45.1% from 43.7%, and then in math, up 49% from 46.9%. But our goal as a school district is 90%, so as you can see, we have a lot of work to do. And again, we have to check the box, goal not met. We have, as a local goal, 100% of students identify career and college pathways, and we use that through the Naviance program. And this really, our counselors work through this. The goal is for 9th graders to hit 100%. We're at 87%, but we start in 8th grade, and we had last year 60% of our 8th graders through our Pathways course complete the Naviance planning. So the question is always asked, why only 87%? Well, some students were new students, some students didn't keep their appointment, and some students may have started but didn't fully complete. So our 3 counselors at the high school really work hard at this last couple weeks. They've been meeting with all grade levels to, again, review this process, and in particular with our 9th graders. So this is an indicator of career or college readiness that the MDE has. This is fairly new. Last year, they sent us the first goal. They wanted all students to be college and career ready by grade 8. So the grade 8, what they did is they took the 8th grade math proficiency on MCAs, and they are using that as a predictor of success in college. So they have set goals there in 2017 for our 8th graders, and if you take a look at our MCA results, which we've already shared with you in grade 8, you can see we have a lot of work to do. In particular, overall, MDE would like us to hit 73% of our students be proficient on the MCA, and we are at 34.7%. We also have set a local goal of 90% of all students will graduate in 4 years. So our 2017 data is simply raw data. MDE comes out with the official data in March. So our graduation data for the Albert Lea High School is 166 graduated, which we determined to be 86% of that class. And at the ALC for true seniors, 2017 grads, we had 7 out of 12, 58%. And what MDE, though, is measuring us on is this, which is all public schools, Albert Lea Senior High, and Albert Lea Area Learning Center. So the senior high is at 86.8, ALC, and you'll see this is 2016 data because they haven't released 2017 data. So as a district, we're at about 76%. The good news is you'll see our ALC is climbing. You've heard some of that data. And then in March, and I double-checked with MDE because I thought this data came out in October, and they told me March. So we will not see the 2017 data until then. So then I provide a summary narrative, and I explain all of that in the report. The report will be posted on our website tomorrow. The data we used to determine our needs and planning, what assessments we used. We document that we review our instruction, our curriculum, and that our teachers and principals have evaluations. We talk a little narrative, which is no more than 300 words. That's all they allow. How we integrate technology, our PLCs, collaborative professional culture. And the last thing is that students have access to excellent teachers. And so they have sent us percentages of students that they pull from Ashley's report, the STAR report, on percentage of students who are in field, out of field, not fully licensed, how many of your teachers are on a variance or a waiver, and those percentages they pull for us, and so we post those. And then what is the plan? Well, you kind of already have our plan because each of the principals already have presented to you what their initiatives are. So at District Curriculum Committee, I took all of those documents, all the slides of each building's initiative. And as Dr. Funk said earlier this year, the buildings established their areas for improvement. So those slides that the principals presented to you become the workforce, the world's best workforce plan for this coming year. So I will take all that information along with some comments made at District Curriculum and write that plan. That's kind of an ongoing plan. We have our baseline data. We know what principals said we're going to do. We'll post that plan, but that can be adjusted throughout the year. That is not actually shared with the Department of Ed. That's local. And then the report come the next year is what we share with the Department of Ed. Principals shared those plans. We combine that with the staff development plans that each building is planning locally in their building. The learning team, which Dr. Funk talked about, talks about what do we need to do next. We talked about the 4 non-negotiables. And then the District Curriculum Committee reviewed the data and reviewed new courses and curricular areas coming forward. So that's the plan, and that gets posted and revised and rewritten, and then we measure against these same goals next year. Those goals don't change. And even the MDE's goals don't change for us because they're in a year of transition. One of the things that we probably will see next year is chronic absenteeism is going to be another area that the Department of Ed has given us hint at that we may be measured against. Also, all of our EL learners, we no longer have new to country where they're exempt from testing that first year. They all will test, no matter when they arrived, and that's new. So 2 new pieces.
Questions or comments for Kathy?
Kathy, can you go back to that growth? The
Sure.
one that says about growth. I just had a question about, I think the goal was 50-something. Yeah, so what's going on with the 8th grade? Because you look at the ones that aren't 8th grade, then we're pretty close. Is there a particular thing that we know about 8th grade there?
So this is the 8th grade that had declining growth coming out of 7th grade as well. But we have taken a look at some of that data to see, are we aligning our curriculum truly with the math standards? One of the questions that came up at District Curriculum Committee is, are our students, once they hit the high school, taking MCA seriously? Do they value the importance of this assessment? We had probably 30 8th graders opt out of that assessment. Typically what happens is day 1, we had a couple of kids opt out, and by day 3 of testing, we had substantially more. But this is a class that we need to pay close attention to, and are paying close attention to this year. They have had 2 years of declining at Southwest, and then again in 8th grade.
If you look at the trend data, though, with 8th grade over the last number of years, it's bad. Okay, it's not just this class. Okay, so one of the, we moved the 8th grade to the high school a number of years ago. All right, from a social emotional angle, is that the best spot for them? Yeah, we've got space there. So I often wonder if they get, we talk about kids getting lost in the middle. All right, well, they're 8th grade, they're in a 9-12 building. I don't know, but that is something that Mark, Kathy, and I have had a number of conversations on what is going on with the 8th grade, because this is not a singular year issue. This is year to year. We seem to, whether it's science, reading, or math, our 8th grade scores are lower than 3.7.
Thanks, because there's another slide, and I think you said that 8th grade math is a career and a college-ready predictor?
Correct.
8th grade math? So it's unfortunately the same group.
Correct.
What's the science? That just doesn't make any sense to me, that if I'm good at math as an 8th grader, then I'm career ready, but if I'm not, it just seems like I have so long to go before I'm going to my career. 8th grade seems way too early, just to me.
Sure. So this comes from MDE. They have determined that that this is a predictor of how well students will do on the ACT, and therefore a predictor of college readiness.
So it's college readiness, not career.
So
It's labeled career in college.
It
but it's
is.
college, okay.
I've had a couple of conversations with MDE staff. I said, so are you talking post-secondary in general? And they said, well, we call it career and college readiness. The same with free and reduced lunch. They like to use the term free and reduced poverty. Well, we know free and reduced lunch is higher than the poverty level. And so the state is trying to fit definitions into what the feds are telling us to do. I guess I don't know the research, and we could check with ACT to see really how good of a predictor this is. When we don't use the ACTs for the state testing because the alignment study came back poor, that our standards align with ACT, which is why we couldn't get rid of MCA tests, because Minnesota standards didn't align well with ACT. But now it's being used as the predictor.
I just, and I guess, I don't know what the students hear, but if I have an 8th grade student and I go to him or her and say, you didn't really do good on this test, and by the way, that means you're pretty much a failure. And they're in 8th grade.
Yep.
It just doesn't seem right to me.
The question I would have, I look at where we're at and what are the the goals. And so I've always been taught that goals should be realistic. Are they realistic? Why is there such a wide gap there? If they're realistic, then we do, like you said, we do have a lot of ground to make up.
And if you look at that top line there across, those are our scores the last several years, 46, 39.3, 44.9. And then the goal, that is established by the Department of Ed.
What do they work their goal establishment off of? Is it 20% of all learners in the state of Minnesota? Did you ever seen a formula like that?
It's to close the achievement gap by 50% by 2017.
So it goes up significantly every year because the gap isn't closing. So to close it this year, we need to do it, or this past year, we needed to have that at 73%. If it started in 2013, that number was probably 50-some percent. But since we haven't caught up, and statewide, we have the worst achievement gap in the nation. And the state does. And so this is their attempt to legislate, okay, well, if we increase the target, then you know, maybe we'll get there. So that's what they're doing.
Are there any of those that are based on growth? Because this is all proficiency, right? Like that last slide you had up. Wasn't that all proficiency?
This is proficiency.
So in a school district, and not just ours, but many that's around us that have, we speak 30 languages and test kids, we don't even give them a year in our country. Will we ever expect a proficiency to get any higher than that? I'd be shocked if it could. The proficiency. Now, we should expect the growth would improve. Right. So I just don't follow the logic of the whole thing.
So if you take a look there, you can see our 8th grade growth in math. Only 24% of the kids grew 1 year, or between about 82 and over 100%.
But growth is a much more equitable target statewide, because regardless of the population of the student, they start at a certain point. And then, so, yeah, and we are one of the few districts that focuses on growth. We actually had to ask the MDE this question this year, can we use growth as a target, growth achievement as a target for QComp? Nobody had ever asked them that question, because they're so focused on proficiency. But if you're focused on, as we talked about from the learning team, you know, being responsive to your students and meeting the students where they're at, then growth is what we should be looking at, as opposed to here's an arbitrary number on the wall. You need to be proficient.
I've preached this sermon far too many times, but it seems to me that the biggest problem is that the measurement instruments that we are given to measure our students are instruments that determine the extent to which our students are proficient in the liberal arts in a college prep program, and that simply is not appropriate for every student. It's wonderful. That was my background, and I'm very thankful for it. I survived quite well in that environment, but it's not for everybody, and we're forcing all of our students to be measured by an instrument that measures something that's not a part of their world. And growth is a wonderful idea. I think that's great. We should be measuring our students' growth, but growth in areas that don't relate to them isn't exactly good information either. End of sermon.
And I agree that growth is important, and I think that is why engagement is such a key, especially for our free and reduced and ELL populations. But I do also find grade 8 concerning, and one of my thoughts is if grade 8 math is an indicator, I would think it would be, if they're on level, to be placed in that higher track of math all the way up. Do we know if these 8th graders are rebounding later in their career, or are the higher math classes leveling out?
So as far as MCA rebounding, they don't take it again until grade 11. And as we all know, this last year, over half of the students opted out. We do know that our students are successful on AccuPlacer, which they need to pass and be successful on to take the college in the schools coursework through Riverland. One of the things the legislature has passed, and we're getting ready to talk with high school teachers about, is if the students take the MCA reading and MCA math, they can be exempt from taking the AccuPlacer if they hit a certain score to take the college and the school coursework through any of the min-state schools. Now, that doesn't qualify for St. Thomas or any of the private schools, but the legislature passed that a couple years ago. I'm assuming to encourage more students to take the MCA. Now, for this year's seniors who maybe wanted to take a college in the schools class, they had to take the AccuPlacer. So that will be something that we'll be sending out to encourage our 10th and 11th graders to take that MCA seriously in 10 and 11. We also have the MCA grade 8, which could be used for a student when they're in 10th grade, if they were successful, to take one career and tech ed course through the community college system. So the legislature is trying to legislate the importance of this assessment.
And are you noticing any patterns in the, maybe you haven't reviewed them yet, in the building plans to increase proficiency and growth that are pertaining to engagement or social emotional growth?
Sure. So one of the things that actually Mark and I and the secondary group has of instructional coaches and principals met 2 weeks ago to talk about what are you seeing in instruction? What are the positives? What, in particular, with our new staff and our second-year staff, but also in our professional learning communities. And Therese Netzer is working with new staff, along with Mark Grosskloss, both during the school day and after school. But our math PLC has, yes, they're looking at their standards, but they're really using their math PLC time to look at strategies to engage students, to model them, to go into classrooms with Paul Durbin, who is our also instructional coach now starting this semester or this term at the high school. So I had a nice conversation with some math teachers at the high school, and they too are concerned. We also looked at our mentor-mentee data. Aaron Gustafson gathered that for our new teachers, and I think that was really eye-opening. How did we do this first quarter with our new teachers? And what more should we be doing to help them in the classroom and help them with strategies? So we are looking at, with our teacher leaders, do we have a good teacher induction program? And are we finding, we talked about high school teachers who student teach, some in the fall, but most of our elementary teachers start student teaching in the spring. So how do you get a classroom going if you don't experience that as a student teacher? We are working with Mankato. We have a couple of student teachers. They now have a student teacher kind of institute day where our teachers who are facilitating student teaching spend a day on campus with the student teacher. That student teaching experience is becoming a little bit longer and certainly probably more expensive, but we really need to increase the skills of our teachers who are new to the profession, and our more senior teachers. Paul Durbin did a really great job looking at the data that, as did Therese Netzer, that came back from the new teachers, and really was glad that we asked for that data because we haven't really done that before to this degree. So elementary is doing their own and secondary is doing their own. Aaron Gustafson is really helping us at the secondary take a look at that data.
The most effective results that we're seeing in this district are a direct result of teacher teams collaborating and working together to meet the needs of their students. So we have got some pockets of great teacher-led teams in this district. And for us to be successful district-wide, we need to replicate and continue to develop our teacher leaders throughout the district so that we can expand what we're doing. And I think that's a real emphasis for us when we're looking at PLCs and our learning team this year.
I would wholeheartedly agree with that, and as a former teacher, I can appreciate that. I would also, if I may make a suggestion, I think one of the best ways that a teacher can learn how to teach is for a new teacher to watch somebody who knows how to teach, and a lot. You know, I think we should, might even have a smaller class load for first-year teachers so that they could have an opportunity to visit the classrooms of teachers that are really good and have learned all the tricks of the trade. I know, thinking way back in ancient history when I started, the best learning I had, or the best instruction I had in how to teach was to watch somebody who knew how. Just watch them.
One of the things that they're doing at Lakeview this year is, just a few weeks ago, they hired a sub for the day, and that sub would go in to, say, a third grade classroom, cover for that teacher, and then free that teacher to go up and watch some other classes going on. And when they got done, then the sub would go and cover somebody else. And so, I don't know, Dawn, if you got to participate in that or found that effective, or what your thoughts were on that.
I don't know. Is this thing on? Okay. We had 2 days of it. We had a floating sub for 2 days, and I did get to go observe other people. So I would think not only is it good for new teachers, and I think they have that opportunity through the mentor program to actually go for a full day, but for all teachers, I mean, I'm not new, but it was certainly a benefit for me to go up and watch, especially the grade above me and a grade below me, to kind of see what happens next and how does what we're doing in third grade fit into what they're doing in fourth grade. And it was really great, and we had lots of positive feedback when we did that. And I think we're planning on doing it again in January, so that not everyone got to go out and do it, so.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, Kathy, thank you for your time. And now we move on to safe and healthy schools, the thought exchange on facilities feedback. Dr. Funk.
So a couple things for you tonight. And we had 319 participants who took the time to go through the thought exchange. And I'll show you a quick little video on this in a minute. They provided 735 comments on what they think of our facilities in the district. And then they starred 11,144 stars, and we'll talk through that. So the questions we asked 3 really open-ended questions. One, what are the most important things you appreciate about the athletic facilities in our community? 2, what are some of your top concerns about the athletic facilities in our community? And 3, what are your questions about the athletic facilities in our community? And you can see there's the demographics, 174 parents, 107 staff members, 32 community members, 5 others, and 1 student participated in the survey. So that's just a quick overview of who participated. Ashley, you want to find that video and quick show the board what this whole process is about?
When there are tough decisions to be made, many people feel they don't have a voice. We've all got our opinions, and we all need to be heard. But if everyone's talking, it's hard to hear anything. That's where Thought Exchange comes in. Through Thought Exchange, you can express what's important to you, things you care about, things that matter. And you can express your opinion whenever you want, day or night, over coffee or in your pajamas. Then you can share your thoughts with everyone else in your community. And you get to see what's important to them, maybe things you haven't even thought of. You can ponder those, then add stars to what you feel most strongly about. That way, the things that are most important to people rise to the surface. The result is based on what the community cares about, including you. And when there's a tough decision to be made, it's balanced and informed and made for the right reasons. Thought Exchange.
So basically, that's the process. So we asked people to respond with some to these open-ended questions. They responded. We then asked people to star, or what do you think of these responses you have seen? And they starred the ones that resonated the most with them. And what you're going to see tonight are we'll go over the top results of what we see from what people appreciate, what the concerns are, some questions they may have. Then I'll show you how you can delve into the district results. So go ahead and click on the Community Appreciates. So they like the fact that our facilities are well maintained and clean. They think it's important to have safe and welcoming athletic facilities in our district. They think that athletic facilities bring our community together for events and pride. It's important to have quality sports facilities so students have the chance to compete in quality activities, and we need a wide variety of facilities. So those are some top line appreciates. Some concerns: the field house is very outdated. The visiting teams and the home teams need a place to go. Safety and accessibility: the football stadium is not handicap accessible, and the use of porta potties is difficult. Also, the parking lot lighting is poor. Hammer complex is overused for its design. The board's aware of the locker issues. Bathroom and locker room updates. Our fields are not as up to date as some of our other teams that we compete against. Go ahead and click on the questions, Ashley. What's our long-term athletic facilities plan for the community? How do we go about funding from updates or general maintenance? Can the city and schools share the expenses? How do we as a community help get Hammer Complex updated? And what are the priorities? And that's really what the whole purpose of this survey was, to find out what's important to the community here. So click on district results. So we have all the questions here. You can see there's different bar graphs. Scroll down just quick, Ashley. So people had thoughts on facilities, maintenance and upgrades, quality and accessibility, how we communicate, engage with the community, how we're going to plan and prioritize moving forward. Go back up and change that to question 2. I'll just go through some of the concerns with the board we've heard tonight. So click on facility maintenance and upgrades. Okay, so here's what these are concerns that they had about Hammer. Now you scroll up, these are actual comments people made. Okay, so stop there. The field house needs to be expanded or duplicated in another location on the Hammer complex. And then if you see underneath there, it's hard to see, but there was something that resonated with 19 people, and they gave it 4.5 stars on average. So that was a pretty strong statement that people thought. Okay, Hammer Complex is overused for the design, not enough playing, practicing, or locker room. Again, 19 people, 4.3 stars. When it's full, we ship out sports events. Okay, that one had 18 people. The condition of the football stadium, bleachers, field house, general reliability needs to be updated. Football stadium could be updated. Would be nice if the concession stand would be on the side facing the game. Okay. Drastic improvements need to be made at Hammer Field. Main stadium is not adequate. For track meets, if you don't want to upgrade a Hammer, you got to do it somewhere else. When upgrade is done to Hammer, at least one of the venues needs to be artificial turf. So that had 18 people, average 4.1 stars on that. Stadium needs an overhaul. Home bleachers need updating. We need a new football stadium. Hammerfield is desperate need of update. So, I mean, people were saying it in different ways, but you get the trend that Hammer should be. Go ahead and go back, Ashley. Next one, facilities upgrades. What are some of your concerns? Title IX, appearance, great baseball field and hockey arena with updated signs. Field house is very outdated. Weight room, air conditioning. I think Mark Rosecall's put that one in there. Old, out of date. Okay, so small gym space. Okay, so that's, and you'll be able to go on this website and click on any of these if you want to go into it in much more detail. Go back up, Ashley. Go back to summary themes. Scroll down a little bit. Okay, accessibility facilities. All right, then click on that one. Handicap seating, disrepair. Football stadium's not handicap accessible. Parking lot, grandstand bleachers, accessibility to football, soccer field, handicap accessibility. Okay, go back, Ashley. Yep, that one. Okay, kids practicing late because they don't have enough facilities, lack of quality space. Gym space is a premium. Facility availability, not enough space. There's a lack of quality gyms in our district, which causes a backlog at the high school in Southwest, not enough space. My biggest concern is we make our programs practice in the gyms later at night because the dance team has priority over at the Southwest gym. Space, accessibility. So the key themes that, and there's some other themes on, I think, softball in there as well. I didn't pop those up. But the softball was a Title IX issue. A number of folks mentioned that as well. So my takeaways from this were people think that Hammerfield is a priority. We have some, including the softball situation out at Hammerfield. We have some space issues with basketball, and I've got a report, I just got it before the meeting, that talks about space utilization as far as how often the gyms are used during the winter sports. I haven't had a chance to delve into that yet. But this, I think, this gives the board this isn't scientific, this is just people with opinions, but this gives the board an idea of what is being talked about in the community regarding our athletic facilities. And I plan on sitting down with Chad Adams here, hopefully later this week, probably not this week because of Thanksgiving, but maybe early next week, to talk about what we saw out of the city. But we didn't see too much about, people seem to be okay with the hockey arena, they seem to be fine with the baseball field. Didn't hear too much about soccer field expansion. It was resounding Hammerfield was an issue, and then I think some gym space issues. So questions on any of this from the board?
I just am wondering about the total overall respondents. How does that compare with our other thought exchanges? We've only had 319 total and only 32 identified as community members.
I'd have to get back to you on that. You know, and we could have had community members who were just parents who weren't, so it's just how they identified. But I'll get you those in the update. I will get you the numbers and how it compared to others. Yep.
Any other questions or comments?
What's the next step? What's now? what are we doing about it?
We had a meeting with some architects today to talk about Hammerfield. We will have a facilities committee with 3 of the board members. I think it's December 20th. Is that the date? Well, we just talked about, when we met with the architects this morning, to talk about, okay, here's some options we can take a look at. And the other piece of that is, when this goes live tomorrow, we're going to be seeking community input for basically a community task force to look at facilities. We'll study this information, get feedback from them. Anybody who wants to be part of the task force can be part of it. And then Afton and Mark will be inviting different booster clubs to have representatives on that as well. So that is the next phase in the discussion as far as where we're going.
And information to join that task force will be on the district website.
And we just got to make sure we don't get a quorum of the board on that task force. So I'll let you know if more than 3 board members sign up, that's happened.
Okay, thank you very much.
So that task force, besides looking at like what to do, you know, are they also going to be looking at, because I'm looking at one of the comments here, and I think it was up there too, about like funding options for doing something, you know, I mean, there, you know, this said, are there, you know, options through grants and scholarships, or like when we were talking about Alexandria schools, you know, like different companies, you know, donated funds for different things, stuff like that would be, are they gonna look at that too?
I think so. One of the, you know, even when we're speaking with the architects, they're talking about, you know, a lot of these places have donors, okay? And if we wanted a tiger out at the football field, okay, like we have in the high school right now, what different things could we have donors, you know, scoreboard, and so I think there will be a committee that, or I don't know if it'll be that committee, but there will be a committee that will be seeking external support options besides just the regular taxpayer bonding options that we would eventually probably have to take a look at.
Okay. Next we have our annual review of policies. Mark Grosskloss.
Board Chair, board members, we're looking tonight at Policy 419, Tobacco-Free Environment. You'll see that e-cigarettes are the main change that's taken place here.
So that's the only change then?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
What are the board's wishes?
And I had a question. So vaping has been a subject of discussion in the Partners in Prevention Group and Family Services Collaborative, and the use of it actually on grounds. Has there been any, since the liquid is flavored, the smell, you can't really smell if this is going on. It's, I think, becoming more of a prevalent problem in the community as a whole. Is there any education being done as far as what to look for things like this, or any different procedures for, I guess, being aware of this happening in schools?
We've talked to staff about it, and Officer Herman's showing people what they're looking for. It's very difficult, as you said, because of the scent. You know, we use kind of what's always happened in school. You look for crowds and you're looking for different things. I would say you see a lot less of the cigarettes in schools these days. And so these are, you know, when we're looking, find out something, we investigate, and that's how we're finding them. It's not out all over the place. And I know they've talked in health classes both grade levels of health and student information on that also.
Any other questions or discussion? This is an action item. Okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second to that motion? Second. Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of policy 419, change on tobacco-free environments, signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries. Item 11 is on labor negotiations. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second to that? Second. Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to go into closed session under Minnesota statute, section 13D.03 and labor negotiations. All in favor of that, signify by saying aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries.